and welcome, 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 welcome to Sunday Night Live. It is Sunday where we are. It is towards the evening, so it counts as night. And we are here, we are live, and today we are doing questions. And boy, oh boy, oh boy, did the questions come pouring in. Mark DeJesus here, brother from another mother, and it is a pleasure to be able to share some time with you guys and to be able to, have a little fun, have a little church, have a little, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and just enjoy ourselves, but also get some truth that sets us free. I saw in the comment section as I was just getting settled in here, Kid Kangas talked about looking forward to the truth in love. That's what it's about. It's about healing and freedom in the grace, in the love of God, truth that sets us free. And a lot of our mental health battlegrounds have been because love has been compromised and it has been hindered in areas of our life. And so the grace of God and his goodness, they become struggles. And we get entangled with religious loopholes and all these different spider webs that we get caught up in our life. And we get lost in certain areas where we're struggling. And we have battles with anxiety or battles with OCD or battles with depression or bipolar or trauma and relationship rifts and all this other stuff that's going on in our life. So if you battle any of that, you've come to a good place. And if you think you have no problems at all in your life, you've come to the right place, because eventually you're going to have to realize that you got brokenness in your life just like everybody else. And we're on a journey in this. Do us a favor, hit the like and subscribe button. If you like what's happening here, it's a blessing to your life and your journey. You can support the broadcast by going to markdesus.com, click on that donate button, and that helps us out tremendously to continue to provide materials that are a blessing to your life. Now, I will let you know, this pile is thick. So as I went through many of the questions, just to let you know, I'll bring the amazing love of my life in just a second. But before I get to that, I do my best to try to navigate some of these questions. But many of them have already been addressed at length and extensively. So if you're hitting unpardonable sin questions, salvation OCD questions, unless there's some nuance that could be helpful for what people are sharing, you need to jump into the OCD healing journey. You can also take the next level if you want to get more in-depth courses and more feedback for your process, and you can join the healing and freedom community. Those are some options that you can jump into. So without further ado, I want to bring the amazing woman of my life, Melissa DeJesus. Yay! Welcome, 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 welcome. It's wonderful to have you here today.
Thanks, babe.
And,
can you hear me okay?
I can hear you wonderfully.
Awesome.
Yeah. I can hear you like you're right next to me.
Amazing.
Amazing, amazing, amazing. So,
yes.
Do you want to take a moment and just greet everybody in the chat?
I know. Last week you told me to, and I didn't. I just started chatting. Okay, let's say ayo to musical Muku. I like that. What's that name mean? Marty, Adrian Robinson, Matthias, HS, CC. Did I do Adrian L? Yep. I am Kaya. Adrian, Katie S., Katharina, I love that. It's such a beautiful name. Christina B., Susan Turner, Late Night Ladybug, very cute name. Welcome, you're new here, yay. Rashawn Jones, Danielle, Deline, Terry Fife, where am I? Janata and Lynn, hey. Swift Justice, Emma P.
We got some people
we got some good people. Clarice.
Yeah,
looks good. Yeah.
What's up?
Jacob Wallace, David Jenkins, Cade
Kangas in the house.
Yes. So hello, everybody. If I missed your name, I'm sorry, and we're glad to have you with us.
Cade Kangas is a good football name. Linebacker, 6'2".
Yeah, that's like good on the back.
275 pounds, from the east side of the Bronx, New York. Give it up for number 47, Cade Kangas.
That is a great name. Yeah, it flows really nice.
Yeah. And then there's some people who think I made up my name, that's Mark De Jesus. Is that really your name? Did you really?
I know, right?
Is that a screen name? Is that a book name?
I know.
It's the name, Mark.
Wait, may I read a super chat?
Yeah.
Okay, JC Burden Lifter, which we know, we love your name. Oh, you all had steak and corn on the cob last week for dinner after the stream. Yes, we did. How was it? It was awesome.
It was fantastic.
What seasonings marinade did you use? God bless. Right now, we do love the, what's the steak? Just the shaker steak stuff. What's that called?
I don't know.
I forget. Anyway, right now I'm a salt and pepper with just a little bit of garlic powder. And then we like to do, my son is obsessed, and so is Mark, with melted butter, chopped garlic, and parsley. And I warm that up, and we kind of dip the steak in that. It's amazing.
It's splendid.
Steak
it's
off the grill.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Yes, Montreal seasoning. Thank you. I don't know why I couldn't think of it. And there is, they have the chicken one. They have a hamburger one. They got all the different flavors now. So I love it.
Yeah.
I'm all about that.
Yeah. And I used to, when back in the pastoring days, when I would teach on the Old Testament, where God would say, take the meat and the fat and let the aroma, it's a sweet, savory
Right.
aroma to God. And I was like, God likes steak right there. And then all the vegans and vegetarians, want to start throwing things,
Right. Right. We are also like pretty psychotic for buffalo chicken dip. My kids would probably eat that every single day if I made it for them.
Yeah.
We're
yeah.
obsessed with it.
Yeah.
Like crazy obsessed. It's a problem. Yeah.
Psychotic.
Yeah.
Just remember, we're doing a mental health broadcast here. So.
Not food. I know.
No, I was saying that when you said we're psychotic.
Oh. Well, listen, we are Coco Loco for the buffalo dip.
we are Coco Loco.
Yeah.
So
We got good questions. I'm excited.
you should see the stack of questions I got.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you did address that. And listen, I understand people are new to the channel, that we have answered a lot of questions.
Yeah.
And it's just important to reiterate that if you go to the topics page and go search, trust me, you will find what you're looking for.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And trust me, a lot of the questions I get tempted to go into some of the biblical
Right.
deep dives that they present, but you can see it a mile away that it is laced with obsessive, compulsive disturbance. And so we always have to get back to working through obsessions involves getting to how you relate to your thoughts versus trying to chase, whatever subject. Because I'll give an answer, and it might be a good answer, it might be helpful, but then we're off to chasing something else the next time. So so that's what's happening.
Okay.
So when we moved down here, I had struggles with allergies, and when we lived in Connecticut, I felt like allergies got better. A lot better, almost at times non-existent. Then we moved down here. The spring and fall become very, very challenging here in the Carolinas. Has anybody else experienced that? But you and I, we were like, goodness, it's like this state is caked with pollen and all kinds of stuff.
Well, I had a little slight problem in Connecticut because you would tell me you have allergies, and I'm like, my family doesn't have allergies.
You had allergy denial.
I had like some pride about it. Like, no, we do not have allergies. And you were like, yeah, you do. But then when we moved down here, you're right. It came like full force.
Yeah.
Full force.
Yeah. And then that combined with the air quality and all that stuff.
Yeah, it's
but
no
anyways, one of the problems that I run into is there's this phenomenon that happens that when you get into the studio here, turn the lights on. I don't know if how sometimes people say they look at the sun, they look towards the sun, they want to sneeze. Or when you start talking, you ever pull up into the drive-through and they're like, I take your order, and you're like, I would.
That's you.
You're about ready.
That's you.
You're about ready to sneeze. So I have I have that challenge right here in the studio. So it's not uncommon that in past broadcasts, I'll be in the middle of trying to teach on something and I gotta sneeze. Well, I don't feel like cutting it out or doing anything like that. So quite often the sneeze stays. Well, one of our viewers, and she's a part of the community, KDS, and you can look up her YouTube page. She compiled
Awesome.
my sneeze moments.
I love it.
So
Very good segue too, babe.
you can
Excellent.
you can watch this and you can see for yourself and pray for me while you're at it. These goofy thoughts. That's how we disempower them. In one sense, we're facing I'm congested the situation because I'm not. Sorry, I'm all congested, so it gives me a. Hey, ace. Okay, there we go.
Of course, fear, doubt, and uncertainty. Hold on, I gotta sneeze. Woo! Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Then I
Stop asking God, going, God, give me the assurance. I gotta sneeze again. Hold on just a second. Let me get a tissue.
Then I kind of learned the mute button after a while. After this, I realized I can just use the mute button. My inbox constantly is with emails of people who they're struggling with their direction. They're struggling with a sense of confusion. I figured out the mute button there, and I just use that. I can sneeze. Struggling with a sense of sneezing. I had to mute the mic for a second there. So, anyways, yeah. So that's
I love it. It's so good.
That's what's happening. So again, that's KDS. If
Thank you, Katie.
Want to look her up? I believe she's in the chat feed
She
somewhere.
is.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So
She did such a good
that
job.
might have taken a while to figure that one out. But you could pray for my congestion and my sneezing.
Yeah.
So. Okay. Anything else? I am in the middle. While you're thinking about that, I am in the middle of teaching. I've launched the OCD Healing Journey training course, and that is available now in the community where I host all my training courses. So if you're somebody that's like, I want to go next level, I want to work through things, I want to take it one step at a time, it's a great place to join and take advantage of those resources. If you got the book, please do your brother from another mother a favor. That one was a little bit difficult to get out. Write me a review if you could. That'd be great. That helps get exposure to the book and to the material, help other people to join along in the journey. Now, my love, do you have any questions that have come in? If you want to send them in, put it in as a super chat. We'll keep an eye out for that. Otherwise, send them in to the website. If he doesn't make it today, I will consider them for future broadcasts. But anyways, do you have anything going on? Oh, wait, hold on. I speaking of,
You muted me?
Yeah.
That's okay. No, we are good to go, and everyone is just chatting it up. So
Okay.
I'll let you know.
So I think this is where we're going to go. I think we're going to talk about EMDR. We're going to talk a little bit about CPTSD. We're going to talk a little bit about ASMR. There's a lot of abbreviations. Okay. And if you want to get to know Mark, it takes me a minute to go. The abbreviation means there's just some part of my brain that takes a second to remember what the abbreviation. I know what they mean, but like the actual words, sometimes I have to remind myself. Potentially orthorexia, potentially some thoughts that I could share about physical healing, and then some other obsessive stuff, things about the journey. I had a question here about I am the man in the iron cage. Yeah, that may get to that. We'll see.
I can't wait to find out what that is.
And then we'll definitely have some dance breaks. That's a break for me to have a break, and then a break for y'all to be able to just let the celebration happen, even though we're in the midst of talking about subjects that go really deep and go into heart heavy areas and stuff like that. So anyways, all right. So let me get into this without further ado. First question. Wait, hold on. Let me make sure. First question. I got to make sure the question. I got to make sure that that's working just in case.
God speaks, because when he does, we all must listen.
There was a lot of questions about what's God's voice. We have been taught, in a lot of ways, we have been taught to obsessively try to find God. What are you saying, in a very pressurized way? It's not good for our mental health. And we attribute a lot of our emotional bursts of fear and confusion and guilt and shame. We attribute that to God. And that's going to lead on a path. When we listen to that and we attribute that to God, it can lead us down some very eroding pathways where you're going to notice more bondage, more confusion, more hopelessness, because we're attributing the God voice to aspects of thinking that are not actually him. But that takes time. And that's not addressing any specific questions, just more, there's a lot of like, is this the Holy Spirit? Is this God? Is God saying this? And I'll get into a little bit of that. But first one I'll get into has to do with eye movement, desensitization and reprocessing. Desensitization. Maybe if I...
Desensitization. Oh, yeah, don't come up in here with all that desensitization.
Anyway, EMDR. This is a question. I wanted to get your thoughts on using EMDR to break through trauma-related issues. I'm working through complex trauma issues in my weekly counseling, and I've just started EMDR as one of the tools. I've known about EMDR therapy for many years, although I've been under the belief that leaning on my relationship with God, meditating on the Word of God, praying in tongues daily, and the like would resolve some or most of the trauma. Therefore, I've avoided using these tools, thinking I was trusting God for healing rather than trusting in man's wisdom and philosophy. I'm not always sure where to draw the line between where the Word of God, prayer, and relationship with God plays a role in my recovery, and using counseling techniques such as EMDR or other tools in my recovery journey. I will look forward to hearing your comments on this matter. Thank you so much for your ministry. Your journey has helped me in more ways I can express. And the person who's writing this question, I appreciate you. You've been around in the YouTube feeds since the beginning of my streaming, so I remember you. So thank you, brother. Let me take a step back in this question and let me give some feedback to my brothers and sisters on how I approach any technique or anything. Could I do that? And then I'll kind of bring my way towards EMDR. If we do, I just kind of thought, you know what, it'd be better for me to just kind of share my heart. When I'm talking with somebody or helping someone, it's not about what tools should I use here. Now, in our journey, that's what we pay a lot of attention to. What methodology? We have been on a long learning journey as world, as culture, as people, of recognizing how trauma has affected our lives. We're still very new in actually understanding that events in our life have a traumatic imprint that then can follow us neurologically, spiritually, in psychologically, emotionally, relationally. We are still learning this. Now, I believe there is room in the scriptures about what it looks like to be renewed in areas of our life. I even use Peter as an example with Jesus in his experience. I talked about that one time about, where he denied him and then Jesus comes to him. There's a renewed experience that takes place in Peter's journey. And I believe a big part of that is tied to the imprint of a rough memory, a rough experience where Peter's mistake, his wrongdoing in denying Christ, and then Jesus still coming to him and saying, I'm going to use you, right? So when it comes to trauma or any kind of healing process, we get obsessed with the technique. I know in Christianity, there are some certain techniques that are sometimes recommended that people will use, prayer ministers or so forth, and they get obsessed in promoting that. That's not where we start. We start with relational rapport. meaning you building loving trust and safety with somebody and learning what makes them tick, learning what influences their journey. All healing is relational. So whether you're sitting with a family member who loves you and understands you, a friend or a clinician or a pastor or a prayer minister, we want a quick fix to just solve all our issues. And what I want to recommend is we take the relational route. Take the relational route to work through the avenues and areas that God is working on, because your battles are not going to be solved overnight. It's going to be a process and journey of learning, right? So my point is, if there's a technique that you look, or a practice that's out there, my number one question I ask somebody is, are you comfortable with engaging in this, first and foremost? Now, as Christians, you would say, Mark, the first question you should ask is it biblical? Mark, is this practice biblical? Right? Now, let's say it is. That's not question number one, because I could say, for example, I may have a grace on my life to pray a certain way for people, and they experience freedom in their life. Maybe it's praying over anxiety. Like, for example, I noticed that as I began to break in freedom, I noticed more of a grace where I would pray with somebody, whether I put my hands on them or not, just pray with them. And I could see panic attacks and anxiety attacks like drop from like a 10 to like a 2 just by praying with them, right? And every person I would tell them, I go, see what you're experiencing right now? This is available in your life, but it's going to take a journey, right? It didn't mean, oh, it went away and I never had a problem again. We had a moment, right? But it was based on me having permission to pray for them. I don't just shove myself into situations and just start taking and praying for people. Or I do this for my calling and my work, mental, emotional, relationship health from a faith-based Christian standpoint, but also recognizing psychological observations, right? I tell people, in fact, my wife and I, we met a couple this weekend. We were spending some time with them. I mentioned this is what I do, but I didn't sit there and like, oh, hey, yeah, I got some things I'm going to share with you. All right, can I pray for you? Can I use this thing? No, it's about building relationship and building rapport. So first and foremost, like, I'm not going to shove any kind of methodology. I'm going to first listen, and I'm going to ask questions that are going to help me to understand your battleground and what could be helpful for you, right? So I think that's first and foremost when it comes to what do you utilize? Because when you ask people what helps your trauma, they list off many, many things. Some of those things in that list, I would say I would be a bit questionable about, right? Because some of them get into pathways or have origins and things that A, I'm not comfortable with, and B, from a biblical discerning standpoint, I have some concerns about them, right? But there are many that I could go through. I'll deal with EMDR here in just a second. So at first, is it something where you go, I feel safe in this setting with this person to go through this? Because relational credibility is very, very important. Within that, do I feel comfortable with this technique? Because otherwise, it's not going to have the work it may intended to have, because you're going to be nervous, second guessing yourself, spinning, or you won't be able to just settle into it, right? Now, for example, I have in my history, I've used some deliverance prayer with people that I found to be very, very helpful. I see noticeable difference and change, but I wait and I build rapport. I see a lot of deliverance ministries. It's like, they get very militant, very pushy, and very law-based too. It inflames a lot of religious legalism in people, right? It needs to have its proper context and its proper timing, right? So when you see Jesus ministering, you can't find the rule. You can't find if you tried to create a methodology, you might have rub mud in the eyes ministry, right? We're all just going to rub mud in eyes, right? And people would come and go, what's he doing? Or, we're going to, let the dead bury the dead ministries, right? You're just going to tell everyone, just, right? There's so many different things that he did in the moment. It was relational, where the person was at, what they needed. Sometimes you wouldn't even answer their question. Sometimes he would take their question, go in a different route. Sometimes he would teach out of what they were sharing. It was all about operating out of love and operating out of grace. So, we can do a lot. People can debate back and forth, but it's like, if you're not comfortable with it, then put it aside right now. Focus on what is helping you. Okay. And then secondly, in your biblical grid, right? Because in Christianity, we do a lot of arguing and debating, right? And stuff. In your current biblical grid and where you are now, do you feel comfortable in stepping forward in this and feeling that it's helpful? Right? I know for a lot of people that creates a lot of spinnies and things like that. EMDR is a process where you're accessing memories. You're accessing typically traumatic memories. And they found with a certain movement of eyes, that's why it's called eye movement desensitization, movement of the eyes, and sometimes they can use other things. What's some of the other things you can do? You can like hold something in your hand.
Tap.
Yeah.
Tap. Hold. Things that pulse.
Right.
Yes.
In your hands
Yep.
and things like that. And so, what is this doing? What we're doing when we're healing, or we're inviting healing for trauma, is we access emotion. We access connectivity to the life of the heart. And that takes trust. It takes rapport. So before I even address EMDR, I'd first say, do you have good rapport with this person who's going to be working with you? They understand your grid, but what they're doing is they're accessing the memory in a safe context where they found within that a certain eye movement or certain techniques. There's a couple of them. While you're accessing, it gives an opportunity for you to renew that. I had this experience in a series of sessions because I was working through some things. I'll say it this way, as a parent, I noticed there were certain emotions firing up as my kids going through certain stages, and I realized this wasn't so much about them. I was getting triggered, I guess you could say, about events in my childhood at where they're at, and so. In that context, I was able to revisit some of those memories and revisit them lovingly and be able to connect emotionally. Now, if you're not doing the learning work, the self-compassion work, some of the talk work that's in cognitive behavioral therapy, which means basically talk therapy, you're sitting down, you're recognizing your belief patterns, I think the trauma work can look like rescue me kind of thing, 911, fix this, and we don't realize that we have work to do. When the person asks this question, you're on a journey where you are, you're doing the work on a weekly basis, and now this is an area, because you're probably accessing some memories that you need to slow down and walk yourself through. This now gets into trauma work, and there's many different aspects of what does it look like to heal trauma. Some would say trauma is a very physiological thing. It's stuck in your body and in your emotions. I would say trauma is events and the influence of those events, spirit, soul, and body. I believe that it affects you on all those levels. So anyways, when there's a pattern that we often have in Christianity where we're trying to navigate our journey, and we want to, you mentioned in your question here, that the meditating on the Word of God, praying in tongues daily, would resolve, most of the trauma, and that is how we often get conditioned in the church. Just do those things, and that's it. And we don't realize, having safe relationships is very important for the healing of trauma, and how we love each other, how we feel safe with one another, how we're able to put our journey in perspective, right? Because everyone has a journey and a story, and how do we begin to put it into perspective? So then what we do is we go, I should be doing this, this, and this, and we put it in this spiritual category over here, and then okay, what psychology observes helpful, we kind of put it over there, right? Because psychology looks over at prayer and goes, we've studied and seen that prayer is effective. Prayer is effective for mental health. Prayer is effective for physical sickness. They see a difference in cancer patients that have a prayer life, that operate in gratitude. This is where I'm coming from, and many of you've heard me say this. There are many things psychology promotes, they put labels to it, that I personally believe that God created. It's in many of things in the scriptures, and psychology just puts names to it and doesn't necessarily give credit for it, right? Practices like meditation, practices of stillness, practices of relational healing, forgiveness, confessing your trespasses one to another, talking out things with each other. Because a typical counseling session actually does what the Bible teaches us to do one another with brothers and sisters, what we were designed to do in the family of God. Now, I'm not saying if you're a believer, you shouldn't need counseling, but I don't have this mindset of like dividing them. Now, they do that. And when we talk to therapists, like, okay, church people, do your church thing. Okay, we're over here. We're going to help this, right? And the church people are like, what are you doing? These people, Jesus is all we need, right? And we're just kind of like in this wrestling match. And I think that God is involved in every area of our life. And I believe he certainly wants to help navigate through what's been traumatic in your journey. And I find with trauma, there's a timing of when it's helpful to work through some of those things. A lot of times we're just not ready. We're too stirred up. When it hits, we get too overwhelmed, right? So helpful therapy can we talk about it piece by piece. Then we can kind of look at those moments, what's helpful for that. And it depends on what happened and how that impacted you. So you said, I've avoided using these tools thinking I was trusting God for healing rather than trusting in man's wisdom and philosophy. So I don't want to create that line, because if I go to the doctor and he does my blood work and tells me you're vitamin D deficient, I don't want to go, that's man's wisdom. I don't want to create that dividing line. It's like, no, we're actually psychology and science, if it's operating in helpful ways, should actually be discovering what God Almighty created from the beginning of how our bodies should work and operate. Now, trauma, I'm getting too deep into trauma now, but really, trauma comes about best through how our relationship grid is set up. And one of the studies I was reading on, where a guy was, I believe it was in Africa. I can't remember if it was Ethiopia or Libya, one of those countries where it was a war-torn area. And Han, I'll bring you into this in just a second. See if you have any other thoughts here. War-torn area, and they had great trauma recovery skills, because every morning they would gather, they'd make coffee, and they would gather in a tribal kind of way, connected as families and neighbors, and they would process what's going on. And so in many ways, that's most of us that are going through, like you said, the PTSD, that has to do with neglect, complex post-traumatic stress, has to do with neglect. And so no tools, no support to let those emotions work through. So in many ways, what EMDR is doing that. Now, if you go, I don't think that, then don't. Then don't. But maybe research it. Read through the history. It was started in the 1980s. The lady who founded it, she has a book. I've read it, and I can see and I can understand. Okay, so anyways, I went a bit longer than that than I planned on that. What are your thoughts?
No, I love what you just walked through, and even when you had shared with me that you read about that tribe that did that, where they're going through like insane trauma every day, and then following morning they're sitting and they're having the coffee, they have the smell that's in their brain, training them like this is what our time is, to just let it all out and connect with each other. It made me want to weep, because we long for that.
Yep.
Right. And working all this stuff out in relationship it's so crucial, and we're all lacking that. It's just beautiful what you just laid out. Anyway,
because what I've discovered, and this has been shown in research, is the trauma in our life that we experience has a lot to do with what we're carrying going into it. Does that make sense? What our makeup is in response to stress, what our family structure is like, our sense of safety moving into it. And typically when things happen, like I'll use the example of like a motor vehicle accident. If there's a healthy debriefing after, where okay, what happened? What, and that can be most helpful, right? Most people don't have that. And you kind of just, you're just spinning and spinning. Now imagine having that as a kid and no one even brings up, hey, how are you doing? We gotta walk through that, so.
So good. I just want to point out, Terry Fife said, I didn't learn that as a parent, I would be triggered by my kids when they hit certain ages, right? That was such a great point that you brought out about your own journey.
Yeah. And that was, there's a couple times I've done some more extensive work in counseling. And there's been times where it's been around parenting where I'm seeing like how I'm feeling my emotions about certain stages of my kids. And I'm like, no, this is me. Because, there were seasons of 11, 12, 13. It was just rough.
Right.
It was rough and it was never addressed. And there are certain anxiety patterns, obsessive patterns. Here I am, an adult, and it goes back to those places and those ages.
Right. And we don't like readily lean into that. Like, hey, maybe our daughter's going through something at 12 and all of a sudden my fear is ramped up to insanity.
Correct.
Like, hey, what did I go through at 12? Well, yeah, that was unresolved. Right.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And just a lot of neglect and Generation Xers, a lot of
they weren't taught how to deal with any of that. And they had a lot of drama.
We did.
Yes.
We did. We survived on our own. We figured out how to cook microwave dinners on our own.
And you know what? Microwave dinners were good back then. And let me just back to food for a second. They used to be good. Do you want me to read a super chat or would you like me to wait? It's sort of related to.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. Christina B said, you teach that healing comes from relationship. A therapist told me I needed to fix my issues before dating. I feel like I need to be perfect, and now I'm just isolated and confused. Thoughts?
Yeah. Therapists are doing their best job. I'm doing the best that I can. It all involves context. If you felt walking away that you had to be perfect, I'm shocked that a trained therapist would even use the word fixed.
Right. And go fix yourself before you date.
Now you're gonna have to learn. You're gonna have to learn in the dating.
I was just gonna say that. Yeah.
How to love. Like for example, here's a question. It has to do with, did God tell me to break up with my boyfriend?
Right.
Here's another dating one I'll get into real quick. Just made me think of this. This is definitely relationship OCD, and I would recommend the book. I had a friend who said she woke up one day and had this feeling that she needed to break up with her boyfriend. And she said it was the same feeling she had about her past boyfriends. That day, she ended up breaking up with him and was genuinely convinced that God wanted her to break up with him. She was very interested in this guy and was very disappointed she broke up with him. See, that's what I'm saying. Trying to attach God to it, and then none of it seems to make sense nor bear fruit. Can sometimes these feelings actually be from God? There were some things that her boyfriend needed to heal from, but I was super confused about this sudden feeling that she that she woke up with. And I thought of this question because you'd mentioned to me about having to be perfect to go into a relationship, and relationship OCDers especially, but many people think I got to get all this stuff together and then I will start dating, when actually it's in relationship that you actually start learning, start working these areas out, start practicing. So anyways, to answer this question, no, that's not God talking. That's not God talking. And I followed that voice. I said it was God. It wasn't. And here I am today, married, and I like being married. I love marriage. And I had to realize that that wasn't God. And here I am. Used to think that was God. I realize now it's not. and I'm okay. And thank you, God, for your grace, that what I attributed to you wasn't you. And a lot of these questions, God's going, yeah, that's not me. I'm not putting that fear on you. I'm not putting that guilt on you. I'm not putting that confusion on you. That's not who I am. So anyways, that makes sense? Oh, wait, hold on a second here. Did I?
You muted me. That's okay. I just want to share that Deborah Jonas, I think I'm saying your name correctly, she said, I am from Ethiopia, and you are right about the trauma processing you mentioned. Coffee is a big part of the culture. Yes.
Well, I will. Well, this is actually more of a tea, but I'll say yes to that. Yeah. Think of all the things that that culture likes: having coffee, drinking tea, having even bars, wine, etc. Right? What is all of that? All of those things, right? Whether you practice that or you don't, it's relational.
Connecting.
It's getting together.
Right.
It's
especially coffee. Coffee's meant to be sipped in a slow relaxation.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's about
So why not add some trauma processing and, sit outside with the birds? That's you and I like to do that. Sit outside in the morning. We hear the birds chirping. Have our coffee.
There's a frustration. I'm just gonna say it. There is a frustration in modern psychology where it gets so clinical, it feels sterile.
Yeah.
Where it's like, okay, we're putting on our gloves. Okay, what's wrong with you? I praise God for the workers out there that come to the meeting with an open heart of compassion and empathy, because that takes work. You can clock your hours and go, okay, write some notes, and it takes work to be empathetic and to be compassionate. But when you look at people's history, when that hasn't been there, you see where mental health gets worse, where it gets really challenging. We were meant to relationally connect, and
You're meant to be looked at.
meant
Just to be
looked at.
seen.
Yeah.
Just to be seen.
Yeah, and our you have to find it and you have to work at this, because our culture isn't built around necessarily facilitating that. It's like you go to work, you're in your cubicle or you're at your job or whatever you're doing. You might work alongside of people, but not necessarily connecting. And then sorry to bring this up, but it's true. Then we go to our churches and we're kind of movie theater style, sitting in seats, looking up at something up there, thinking, hey, I'm connected. Are we really, though? Are we really connecting? Are we really having a sense of being seen, understood, and we're walking through journeys with us? So we're super busy. We have a lot of activities going on, but we don't seem to have relational depth. And then with everything that happened in COVID, just isolated everybody. And a traumatic lockdown that affected people more than a lot of people understand.
Yeah, and I
realize.
think people do not know how to volley. And a lot of that does go back to childhood, where you weren't talked to, you weren't really looked at and seen. Your opinion wasn't asked of things. So now you become a grown up and you're trying to engage with people at work, church, etc. Someone asks you a question, you answer it, and you stare at them. And then you're like, well, I'm lonely. We have to learn that there has to be a back and forth too.
Yeah, because otherwise conversations become one-sided.
Correct.
Where one person's just constantly talking about themselves, or there just isn't that flow back and forth. We do need to, if you want to work on your social relating skills, learn to ask fruitful questions, to be lovingly curious about someone's life.
Yep.
That alone will do amazing things. Because in love, like, someone could have all kinds of traumatic stuff in their journey, and you'll need to figure out what's going to be helpful for you. Some of it's going to be discovery. Don't be afraid to go, no, I did that. I don't think it was, I don't know. We'll see. You're discovering along the journey. I've been in prayer sessions with people where after that was over, I'm like, okay, that was weird. That didn't go very well, right? But I don't look at that as like, oh, I miss God or I did something wrong. I'm learning along the journey.
Right.
We have to give ourselves permission to learn in the process, or else we're gonna hyperventilate.
Right.
Over, am I doing the right thing? Is this the right thing?
Yeah, that's good, babe.
Yeah. So let me get into some ASMR. I'll bring you into this in just a second too, if you don't mind. You can give me some input to this. So all right, that one's where I put the papers. Okay. Have you heard of ASMR? Yes, I have. It's autonomic sensory meridian response. I've experienced this my whole life, and it's a very pleasant feeling. Is it something Christians should be concerned about, especially since it's so similar to hypnosis? I've also heard of so-called Christian ASMR. What are your thoughts? Okay, I apply the same thing. I apply the same thing here that I would apply to the previous one. Are you comfortable with it? Does your grid and where you're at right now, right? Because I feel like as you learn in your journey, you have your convictions, and Christians want to like, give me the set of rules, right? Rather than learning and discerning and practicing. And so there's many great tools of learning to be still. I did a whole teaching on meditation and what that looks like. Modern Christianity, especially in the West, we have trouble like sitting still. We have deep struggles receiving nurture. And so whenever something is introduced, we go, oh, maybe that's weird, or it's too woo-woo, or it's too new agey. And I understand, new age influence. I get it. For example, for me, personally, I'm sharing a lot of personal stuff there today. For me personally, I do draw the line at yoga. For me, I don't practice yoga. I don't promote it. I know too much about it. I just know too much about where it comes from, what they're doing. And I also believe there's just plenty of things you can just do that you don't have to engage the pathway of what they present there. But that's my journey. I doubt I'm going to go out there and like debate with people and argue with people about it. That's just not my thing, right? I've seen some people gain some freedom, and I let that go, and they saw some breakthrough in my life. But those are just more stories versus studied things that I can bring to the table. But that's for me. There's like certain movies or certain things in our house that I say, you know what? I'm not comfortable in my convictions in those areas to have those kind of things. Scream about it, fuss about it, go yell at the neighbors about it, anything like that. But it's just like, here's just the filtration system of what helps. So I'll get to hypnosis in just a second, because some of you might be surprised what hypnosis really means and what it actually looks like. So I'll get to that in a second. You might be surprised what I would have to say there. But okay, so basically there is an experience where I have to bring my mic up close, and I'm going to take my fingers, I'm going to put them right here. I'm combing your hair right now. Okay, if I have to super explain it, but basically you usually can see it in the videos where the person's talking so soft, it's like the microphone has to be so close to their mouth as they're talking and as they're sharing, right? And it creates a very high sensory amplification of very simple everyday sounds. So it could be the nails. I have compressors on my mic, so it's not picking it up. Or so it creates a sensation typically in your scalp that kind of goes down. It's almost like that tickle that goes down your back. Okay, what I would relate it to is I remember as a kid, I think when I was a kid, my mom would sometimes put her hand on my head and scratch. Or I don't know, maybe my mom didn't do it. Maybe I just did that to myself. I don't know. You ever have that where like I do that to this day, where I if I'm tired, I'll just kind of scratch my head, and it kind of gives this almost relaxing sensation. I know it sounds weird, but if you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. So in many ways, ASMR kind of activates that kind of response, a relaxation to that. So there's a couple forks in the road that I'm going to explain with ASMR. One fork in the road is one person who responds well, it's relaxing, it feels nurturing. The other that goes, this is strange, weird. They can even feel like it's repulsive or like, oh, maybe it'll trigger some misophonia, and they have some noises that they're, they don't like that kind of amplification of a highlighted noise, right? Now, within those that they find it to be positive, there's a fork in the road here too, where some people think they have a somewhat sensual, sexual response to listening to that. And that's not what it's supposed to be intended for. That's not what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be a nurturing, relaxation kind of experience where, just like a mom rubbing a child's head, and where another way of like where a daughter, her mother's combing her hair.
Yes.
It's bringing about that. So am I making sense of this so far?
Yes,
And
you are.
so for example, when I listen to ASMR, it doesn't do anything for me. It's kind of strange. For you, you have a more positive response to it. Where
I do.
Where it brings back recollection of, well, I'll let you share.
Yeah, I actually didn't know what ASMR was till it was about 6 years ago. I was not sleeping. It was horrible. And I didn't know what to do. I was like really coming unglued. And so I'll never forget this. I lay down and I was just flipping through YouTube, and a video came in my YouTube recommendation of a girl getting her hair brushed. And I went out like a light. It put me right to sleep.
Yeah.
And I came to you, I'm like, oh my gosh, what is this? Like this whole world opened up and for me, it felt very nurturing. I needed to have that reference in my life of relaxing and having a nurturing sense.
Yep.
It totally brings like this calming to my brain. Like Danielle said, Bob Ross is a great example. The way he talks.
Correct. Yes.
How a mother should talk to you. Very soft,
Yes.
gentle.
Right.
She is the one that is supposed to be that point of reference when it comes to nurture. And a lot of people do not have that. A great example is, like you said, your mom scratching your head, maybe scratching your back. A lot of kids love that at bed at night. Oh, can you tickle my back or scratch my back? Yes. Moms do, not that dads can't, but that's mainly a mother trait. A lot of us do not have that. And so then we're like trying to calm down. We're trying to figure that out. Yes, there are some channels of ASMR that ladies have unfortunately made it sexual and made it creepy and weird. That's unfortunate, but there are channels where to me, I respond well to it. Someone talking very calm and soft and nice.
Yeah.
It just soothes me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's I have a lot of experience in like charismatic circles. And so they still do often promote something called soaking, which was like, where you're listening to instrumental music and just relaxing yourself. Right. And people are like, well, what is this? So we get super heady, which I understand. But what the real problem is we lack nurture.
Yeah.
We lack the ability. So like Abby, for example, she can have, and if Abby's if she's listening to the Rumble section, yes, Abby, she can tend to have trouble like at night where she's settling. She gets, she can get like, worked up and a lot of energy and stuff. And I can see we're just sitting with her and just, sometimes just embracing her, where it begins to it activates nurture of calming down. Americans, Europeans, we have no idea how to end the day.
No, we don't.
So most people have to crash land into their addictions because they lack nurture. So so I think this is just one of those things they're discovering, and it looked like they kind of accidentally discovered this. If you look at it for what it is, people are really just in need of the nurture response. And if the nurture response from your mother relationship growing up didn't initiate that and put that reference, it creates a lot of problems, a lot of guilt, a lot of beating yourself up, inability to regulate your emotions, to practice self-control, because nurture goes into all those areas.
Yeah. Yeah. It is interesting too, because I have misophonia really bad. But mine is with listening to people chew or certain noises.
Me chewing.
Yeah, we won't get into that. But but you know, that goes back to other things too as a child, and you know, one of my family members being irritated at it, and then sometimes I wonder, is it because like I was yelled at for it? Did that trigger that in me? But it is interesting with ASMR because I've heard I haven't done like a lot on it. I just know the little certain things that help me relax every so often if I pull up a video. But people have to kind of find what works for them, because there are some people that can't stand the tapping on the mic, but they can listen to someone just reading a book to them. Or I think someone asked, what's Christian ASMR? Honestly, I think it's just people reading the scriptures in a soft voice.
Yeah.
I don't know. I haven't done a lot of research in it.
I think a lot of the YouTube videos that are out there that have music with reading the scriptures, that it has that same effect.
Yes, it does.
Because those videos are not like, you know, in the secret place of the Most High. You know, it's not. Sorry, my earbuds are.
What happened?
It's not God, like, not God. It's not just a voice yelling at you. It's more of a calming voice.
Right.
Sorry, my earbuds went out.
They died.
I got to change the battery.
Okay, go ahead. No, with ASMR, I think like from what I've seen, I haven't done a lot of research myself, like I said, but people will try to kind of see what works for them. And there's so many different kinds. Like I've seen a lady, which it was kind of fascinating, to help people overcome anxiety with a dentist. She does like a dentist appointment and does it in a soft voice and walks you through the dentist appointment. And I got to tell you, the people in the comment section are like, this helped me to just go to the dentist. So if you...
Dentist is one of the top fears I've encountered in my ministry work, going to the dentist.
Right. People have a lot of trauma with that.
That and driving.
Yeah. So, yeah. It's a great reference for helping your brain to connect to nurture.
So
that's all.
So I'm gonna throw a couple curveballs into this.
Okay.
Because
throw away.
I listen, and I want people to understand too. If you have certain values, things you like, you know what? I don't feel like.
Yeah.
I respect that.
Yeah, totally.
I'm not one of those like, oh, you know, whatever. He's gonna put that down. I respect people's journey of conviction. The concern here is this like hypnosis? And when we think of hypnosis, we think of like, you know, you are getting sleepy, you know, kind of thing. Sorry, that's just me and the cartoons I would watch as a kid. You're like, I think it's like, you know, the Looney Tunes or something like that, or there'd be something,
right.
You know, and really when we talk about, there's aspects of hypnosis that are concerning for sure, but hypnosis involves guidance through emotional or like underlayment of emotions and things like that actually we connect to all the time. So there's a hypnotic, so for example, people's patterns, how they grab their phones, what they listen to. When you turn on the news, there's a certain way of, there's a subconscious way that they're conditioning you in certain things, certain fear patterns, certain things. There is a hypnosis, so to speak, and I use that word quite often. If you listen to my teachings about we get hypnotized into certain patterns of believing that we don't realize. That's why the Bible talks about don't be sleepy, don't live asleep, be awake, not in fear, not in paranoia, but just be awake and alert, right? And so, for example, there is when you're in worship, like a worship service, like think of you know, maybe the worship songs that you like, people with their hands raised, their eyes closed. There's a kind of a zone that you're in just like connecting to your love for God and your passion for Him. Some Christians would go, oh, that's bad. You know, that's hypnotic. There's some, you know, more on the like maybe Baptist side. They'd be like, you know, they're too emotional. They get in these zones that they're just zoning out. Oh, really? I'll give you a Baptist example of hypnosis. Are you ready? every head bowed, every eye closed, no one looking around. Step number 1. Step number 2, if you were to die tonight,
Oh, hey now.
I've just set up the scenario for it, right? So I'm not saying that to condemn all these pathways. I'm just saying for people to understand, be aware of
What you're condemning.
what. Oh, I wasn't going to say
Because
that.
you may have it in your own. Go ahead.
Yeah, and people use it in sales. You know, they want to tap into your desire, but also tap into fears to sell you insurance or to sell you
Right.
whatever. Right? You're accessing that emotional pathway in somebody's life. Now, do you want to be aware of who's involved in that? Yeah, sure. I think some people can get so scared that they don't allow themselves to A, access healthy emotional processing, and B, not realizing that these kind of things get am I making sense?
They get
activated.
used. No, Musical Muku said, amen makes everyone's head come up. Like we all know, head up. Like it's yes. We've all learned in a ritualistic way or a manipulated way. We're not saying amen is manipulation. So please, people, don't spin out by that.
It's understanding conditioning. Yeah.
Yes.
So
yes. Thank you. Well said.
So I went to a Christian school, and from 7th to 12th grade, and every day the bell would ring. We'd all stand up, and we would pray, and we'd do the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay. Then I went to college, and there was, I don't know, there's some kind of alert, and I felt this like
You're supposed to stand up.
this
right?
this Pavlov dog kind
Yes.
of like
Yep.
I was like, wait, what? You know?
Right. We all have things we've been hypnotized to
Right.
in our life. Yeah.
Right. So so if somebody is speaking softly and or running a comb through your hair, kind of thing, it's still your responsibility to go, where am I going with this?
That's excellent, babe. Yeah.
Right? Because people can also too, now ASMR becomes your Jesus, right?
Right.
Versus just, hey, this is relaxing. Just like going for a walk is relaxing, and looking at the trees is relaxing. Could I get to the point where I'm like, ooh, trees?
You have a looking at tree ministry.
Yeah, you could. But my tribe is living in hyperventilating fear of ever taking a wrong step.
Right.
And it's like God's so patient as you learn and as you grow. Just let yourself learn. I just find that the black and white we create, we're pretty goofy about it, because I just proved that charismatics and Baptists both practice hypnosis. Right? But it's like it's because we have our formulas, right? And then we go, well, you want to be biblical. Is anywhere in the Bible does it say everyone bow your heads,
Right.
everyone close your eyes, no one looking around? No. Right? We're creating certain routines that we find are helpful. If you go to any church service, there's usually some music in the beginning. And then, then there's like some announcements, and then there's some kind of message, right? We get like conditioned into those patterns, right? So we're all trying to find nurture. What is your way to find nurture? So
Right.
if I sit there and I just kind of run my finger in my scalp, like I'll kind of just let my nails go like this, right? Am I allowing myself to connect, to rest, knowing God is with me? I think it's more like what you're doing with it that I think can be important.
It's good, babe.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I feel like anymore, and I'm over talking.
Yeah. You know what?
We need a
dance
We
break.
need a dance break. Where are we going? 70s, 80s, Caribbean. Are we going?
Let's do the
to
70s.
the 90s.
I appreciate the 70s.
Let's do that. let me take some time here. Let me take some time here to try to make some ground. Let's try to make some ground here. I'm going to try to cover. My inbox was full. So,
Oh, sorry.
Go
What
ahead.
have we done? 2 questions? How many questions have we done?
yeah, and I feel like I'm doing a lot of sharing today.
I know.
Like, it's like,
I think it's good, though.
it's like the Mark DeJesus confession hour. And there's going to be more of that because the question here is about physical healing. And I'll be more than happy to respond to it. Do you believe in God healing of the body? I know that our soul is number one priority, but I've never heard you mention anything about physical healing. Have you experienced it? I would say that it hasn't been an emphasis of mine in my YouTube content. Now, I have a story that I shared in one of my videos about acid reflux, hiatal hernia. If I was to give an example of where I experienced physical healing, I definitely noticed a significant difference in my GI tract, but it wasn't a, God, I pray for this to be healed kind of thing. It was more, as I was breaking free of anxiety-ridden, fear-ridden patterns, I noticed the physiological shift and change it had on my body. So I discussed that. So now I don't talk a lot about physical healing right now, and I'll give you the honest reason why. I'm in the midst of process in this area of my life, and my journey and the ministry work that we do is about helping others with the help we've received. And physical healing is a very, it's a messy area. And I feel like there's been a lot of damage done, a lot of unhealthy approaches to it. And yet healing is a major part, physical healing to the body of disease is a major part of what the New Testament talks about. But I'm in my own journey and I'm in my own process of that. I have, for example, you heard my battery pack go out right here. I've got hearing loss that's in my generations. It significantly affects. Now, those of you that watch me in this broadcast, you don't really experience that because I've got these molded earpieces that run to this wireless pack that then also, I'll show you what I got here. You see right down here, those are my batteries that I just took out. But the system runs into this wireless transmitter, and these are parametric equalizers. And I have these to adjust the frequencies that I'm losing right now, that I currently don't hear well. And so I had to get this whole rack system just to be able to hear when I'm doing coaching sessions with people, doing meetings with people, filming these broadcasts. At other times, if you see me standing over there, you'll see that I'm wearing hearing aids, right? My mom has significant hearing loss. She's got the, I forget what they're called. What do you call those things? Cochlear implants.
Yes.
Yeah.
And poor thing. She's struggled so much because then one of them wasn't put in right during the surgery. And
yeah.
Yeah.
And I started to notice in my 40s heading, down a similar pattern. So just that right there. Now, do I believe in healing? Yes. But I don't have these really shiny answers that I'm going to give.
And we have a child on the autism spectrum.
Yep. As well as in my own journey, I've mentioned it somewhat, but enough for those of you who stuck with me through all this, especially during 2021, I think it was when the worst of it. I have an autoimmune arthritic condition where for a little bit there, I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to walk.
Yeah.
And it was just being able to stand up. It was crippling. So I have a list of areas that I'm in process with right now, and I'm learning, and I'm letting God walk with me through this. And I believe God is a God who heals. That's my addressing of the question. If you want to hear about my experience of a healing in my life, you can look at the acid reflux thing I share about, and I talk about that. And I'm on a journey of what that means and what that looks like. And what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to toss out cliches and just things that I'm not working through and seeing have a work and fruit in my life and in my journey. But I believe it's a big area that a lot of people get I don't know. I feel like I feel like we're not mentally healthy about it.
No, and the church is not. The church has damaged people deeply. Like someone had written, when they say, "Well, you're not healed because you don't have enough faith. You've made wrong decisions. That you brought this on yourself, or God put it on you." There's just a lot of things that have really damaged people.
Yeah,
that's awful.
You and I have been on a journey of what does it look like to live in health. We have our own battlegrounds of what we've been going through, what we've been battling,
what we've been fighting for healing. Yeah.
Some of it is, it's a combination of spirit, soul, and body. It's not just one. And when people talk about health, they usually look at one facet, right? What's your nutrition? What supplements are you taking? What's your exercise, right? And it goes so much into how you think. It goes into your spirituality, and it goes into your genetics, because our genetics have certain markers that lean in certain directions, right? Can God heal the generations? Not just the healing of sickness. What about healing of the generation where that sickness no longer runs in that family? Right. That's kind of the bigger topic. Because like I said, my mom with her hearing loss goes back to my grandfather, who also had hearing loss. And tremendous amount of anxiety battles too, by the way. So each generation is responsible to take what they've been given, go to the next level, and with God in their journey, right? So, right. Yeah. Anything else you want to add to that? Or
no, I think that's well said. We could spend hours and hours on this topic, and everyone's journey is their own. Condemnation and guilt in this area does not do anyone any good. And quite frankly, no one has the perfect answer for what people are going through. You don't know someone's journey.
Correct.
And sometimes the best gift of just helping someone heal and walk through things is just listening to what they've been through. I know that when it came to, I'll just say this and then we can move on, is that when it came to everything that we were walking through with our son, and some of you that have been following us have probably heard us discuss this, we literally tried to do everything that we possibly could. And we had a lot of people giving advice, telling us things. Like I even shared with Mark, I had seen something on social media where someone was sharing the pains of having a nonverbal child, and that they were very raw and honest. And then I went into the comment section and they said, there was people saying, well, you just need to get them to the right doctor. Well, you just need to have enough faith. It was just so disheartening to me where we've come to as not just a culture, but even in the church, how we condemn people. Yeah. And if we can at least remove that and just let everybody, just love everybody through their journey of where they're walking through towards healing, I think it would be just a little bit better as we all are trying to figure this out.
Yeah, because we learn what we need to learn when it's time in the process of the journey. Everything I encourage is journey oriented. So see this picture behind me, even this picture. So I look at my physical illness and I go, God, you are the God who created me. You're a God who heals, and you're walking with me across that bridge. You're walking with me through that. And so I pay attention to what helps. I don't fuss over what I think that I'm doing wrong or this and that. I don't fuss over those things anymore. I used to. Now I just pay attention to what helps and how to walk in love and be present in the day and take it one day at a time. So
amen.
Anyways, maybe more to come on that in the future. But
good.
Yeah, I have some stuff I'm working through on that. Let me get to this one. Maybe I can go not as drawn out because it took, I think, what I get through, maybe 3 questions. And I think I had like maybe 75 come in at least. That's just a guess of how many came through. But this one's about OCD and eating, healthy eating, because I think this would be good for me to mention a couple things. There's some stuff here about eating disorder stuff, about food. I recently realized that my recent thought patterns and behaviors around food are suspiciously similar to those with scrupulosity issues. People with scrupulosity or religious OCD are obsessed over their salvation and sin, and they often push those rules and thoughts on people around them. Well, replace religion with diet, and that's what I've been doing. Yes, and that's why I say you can be OCD about anything. there's an unlimited supply, and that's what makes it challenging in the work that I'm doing. Is we can chase this subject, that subject, this subject. These disturbances are they become obsessions that then get followed up with compulsive. And I found in my journey, it wanted to get into my relationship with food. I've had a whole relationship with food I've had to be renewed in, and then relationship to my weight, how I looked, what size clothing I was wearing. And then when I got healthy, and cleaned up my eating, then started to become accusatory to me to make sure I'm following this correctly. And then if I wasn't getting the results I wanted, it could fire up the perfectionistic, maybe I need to try this, maybe I need to try this, maybe I need to try this. And that is something that I'm continuing to learn and grow and heal in. So I have a lot of compassion in this area for people that are struggling. There's a lot of obsessive compulsive eating issues going on. And so orthorexia has to do with obsession with healthy eating. So that led me to do a search since I finally realized my concerns about diet are unhealthy and obsessive. I found an eating disorder with ties to OCD called orthorexia. I spent hours and hours of most days researching clean and healthy food. I restricted myself so severely from bad food that I was losing a pound a day for a while. I'm very concerned with chronic diseases like cancer, diabetes, autoimmune, heart disease. My parents and a lot of family members suffer from those along with obesity. I eat the same thing every day from a certain restaurant that I decided was safe and healthy for years now. I have several deficiencies such as iron and B12. I'm having a lot of physical symptoms manifest. I'm not sure it's my eating or if I have some hidden disease. So the health OCD's coming in here too. I will also never eat at anyone's house. Never eat at anyone's house. You might be missing some good food. Depends what house you're going to, because
Maybe that house you don't want to be eating their food. Some tricky stuff there.
But I'll tell you what, man, you have some good Spanish.
Arroz con pollo, that is some good rice and bean, bro.
That's straight up true. Get some good spicy Mexican food. I'll tell you what's really good is Indian food. Man, you can't handle Indian food. It doesn't agree with you very well.
No. No.
So if I do that, I have to go solo.
Uh-huh.
Anyways, where was I? I will not eat food that others prepare due contamination fears. All right, so you got some fears going on with contamination. This is what obsessive compulsive sounds like. I'm very depressed, which when we live in obsessive compulsive patterns, usually the fruit leads us to more depression, more heaviness, more discouragement, more hopelessness, because it is OCD asks questions and creates disturbances that lead to nowhere. So we just cycle. So, and you're in good company because the Bible talks a lot about food. There was a lot of arguing in the Bible days to eat this, don't eat that. Everybody was fussing. They were arguing in church over food. Excuse me, I got a little bit. Okay, it was about to be a burp coming through. I didn't want y'all to have to get it. There was a lot of arguing and debating over food. And Paul was like, listen, okay, if you're over here and you have these convictions, you have that convictions, well, whatever you do, just eat in faith, folks. Just eat in faith. So it takes a practice of accessing faith, hope, and love in working through this. That I'm gonna be safe, I'm gonna be okay. And to balance out that sense, okay, wash your hands before you eat. There's certain things that are just good common sense things, but realizing, okay, I'm feeling that, kind of feeling coming in, and just being aware and recognizing that. So you may want to take some steps and going, all right, if that neighbor of yours makes some sketchy food, get it, don't go there. But you may want to take some steps in your healing journey to go, I may need to take the step to eat something with someone. What's the bridge look like? Because otherwise it's just going to box you in, and it's going to imprison you and isolate you too, because food is also, like we mentioned with coffee, food is meant for us to A, connect to God's provision, B, connect to gratitude. See, we don't think of that. We just go, I just want a burger. It's connect to stillness, to pause. That's we take a moment to pray for our food, right? And that prayer, the Bible talks about, has a sanctifying work over our food. Don't ask me what that actually looks like as it's in your body, but something's happening, right? As we're praying over it, we bless it. And food is meant to be relational. It's meant to be connection. In fact, God loves to take people out to eat. In Old and New Testament, Old Testament, even with Abraham, you see a manifestation of the Lord, right? And he's like, hey, let's eat. You see Jesus in the book of Revelation. I stand at the door and knock. If you open the door, I'm going to come have a meal with you. Through the words of David, he sets a table before me in the presence of my enemies. This whole story and this whole journey that we're on is leading to what? A big meal. Marriage supper of the Lamb. I can't wait to taste that lamb. I bet it's delicious. But anyways, so you mentioned you have food texture issues. You can't access it healthy. So this is all gonna box you in. I had a massive fight with my sister last holiday season because she and her fiance wouldn't listen to my food advice. This is where in obsessive compulsive, we defend our obsessions and we become loyal to them. And we have to be aware. So you mentioned scrupulosity. Religious OCDers, like they will try to convince me, Mark, I'm a reprobate. I've committed the unpardonable sin. No, Mark, I have not. I'm not God's. He's, and I'm like, I'm not going to sit here and argue with your obsessive disturbances that you're in. I can't argue with you. You have to come to a place of choice and decision of what you're going to do about this. Now, our relationship with food, I think I probably have never met a person that couldn't use some help in how they relate to food. Because many of us growing up, what was the dinner table like? Was it safe? Did you feel great? There's all these issues we have, growing up in our relationship with food and how we want to control. So what you're doing here is you're wanting to exercise control over life. But then you realize with your sister, you can't control everyone. And it starts to really bring out, okay, I got to do some healing. You said you didn't speak for nearly 6 months. I meant well because I thought I was saving them from disease, but now I can clearly see I have a huge problem. It's all right. We all have to come to that point, like I did, where I was like, okay, my relationship patterns, this is not healthy. The way I'm relating to God, this isn't healthy. The way that I get angry or upset or these certain things, this isn't healthy. It's how I'm seeing these things that needs healing. And so you said, I'm hoping you have some wisdom because this one has me deep in spinning and took over my life. I don't know how to get out of it. You start with compassion. God's loving compassion over where you're at. This is going to be where God is going to show you who he is in power, love, and sound mind. So here's my recommendation. Every time you sit down to eat, I want you to pause. I want you to give God thanks for provision and connect to his goodness over your life. I want you to pause and take a breath. Just take in some deep breaths. God, thank you for this moment. Thank you that I have provision. And consider, where can I face this fear with someone? And maybe you go, hey, could I have lunch with you? But will be the food that I eat, but maybe one item that you could bring. And I'm going to take a step and pray over it and know that God is going to be with me. Let's see what you discover in that. But I think that, babe, I'll bring you into this. I think that there's a lot of food issues.
Yes.
Okay,
first, Danielle said food is so relational, and it is. And when you brought up, too, about...
Danielle O?
You know it. Love her. Where growing up, like the dinner table in my house was not fun.
Right.
Not fun. It was silent or somebody was upset. So you weren't processing your food properly.
No.
The dinner table was not fun.
No.
And I think a lot of people have that too. Like, what is your relationship with food over those things, right? Just, there's so much around that. But someone did bring up something funny, and I was going to say it. And then Cade said something funny about his
barbecue
parents.
at Cade's.
No, right. No, but Cade's parents let their cats go on the counter and lick from the kitchen faucet. And he said, luckily, he has not become sick from it. But I will tell you, I think that there is, right, and we can go to like feeling OCD about this, but there is a realm of where people are just filthy. Okay. Like, I saw people not washing their hands. The way that people do not cut and work with chicken properly. Okay. And it can become a whole thing. Now, I can take it to a whole level that's not good, and I'll like spin that I've like poisoned you guys because that's a problem that I'm working through. But yeah.
And you have to actually, and you mentioned this, and you mentioned this in the live a few weeks ago.
Did, yeah.
And we talked about like working through it, facing that fear, and letting God's love, have a work in your life. But it's all done. It's all done relationally.
Yeah.
And
like I will have a panic that I didn't cook. It's usually around chicken, and I think a lot of people had related. That I didn't cook it properly, and I somehow gave you guys E. coli. I spin, that happens to me a lot. And I have to just work through. What's funny is that you will say to me, oh, my stomach's fine. Trust me, I'm not going to get sick. And I'm like, yeah, but I don't have that stomach. I don't. And you do make me laugh about it, and we work through it. But food stuff can be tough, especially too. We are in an age where like clean eating and healthy eating and all those things have really come alive, and people are very aware of what they're taking in and things that make them sick. Every time you turn around, there's an article that comes up. Well, you can't eat this now, that they attribute this to that. Like even the whole thing that you and I talked about yesterday about the aspartame and how they're making, funky with how they're even going to list it so they can get away with still using it. The government messes with our food. So I see where it does become an issue. And in families of what are you eating? Why are you putting that in your body? Yeah.
Yeah. I find an interesting phenomenon as I got into clean eating, that there was like a lot of Pharisees in the clean eating community, meaning that they're like judging and condemning you versus teaching, educating. And, it's the same kind of religious spirit comes in.
Yes, that's what, yes.
Good
point.
And then, bashing everyone for their cruddy eating, which, especially in America, we have the worst health in the world and the worst eating patterns in the world, definitely, right? But it's going to be loving grace that's going to awaken it, because that's what it was for me. I didn't change any patterns until, some of the pain of what I was experiencing showed me, especially with my health overall, I got to make some changes. But B was really out of letting love have its work, the love of God that, you know what, I want to take care of my temple. And so people can fall into either pattern where they, like you said, they don't clean, they don't even know how to clean, or they don't take care of themselves, or they do it, they take care of themselves, but it's under disturbance.
Yeah.
So,
and food stuff can become like when you first get saved and you want to tell everybody, when you start to learn what's in food and all those things, people make it like that.
I was like that. Yeah.
Like, do you know what's in that? Well, I just learned. Do you know what that's doing to you? Yeah.
Yeah.
People have to come to that too on their own. And it goes back to, again, you have to start having love for yourself to go, okay, what am I putting in my body? But you know what? Sometimes you just want a half a sundae and some Doritos. Okay. That's me. Never mind.
One of my one of the stories I'll tell at like speaking events or things like that. It's a funny story of a session I was doing, and it was a phone call. It was back when I used to do the phone call once too, and I was like, "How are you doing?" And she was like, "Not good, not good. This whole weekend." This whole weekend, my emotions were all over the place. And you know what I did? All I did was eat pizza, Cheetos, soda, and watch Netflix. I go, that sounds amazing. And she wasn't expecting that. She was waiting for, well, we got to start working on, and it just kind of shook out. She was like, wait a second, who am I talking to here? Like, come on, yell at me. I'm terrible. Like, first of all, lighten up. What we're going to, we all have our aspects of our journey that we're working through. I think that it changed my life to see my relationship with food to, it's like mental health, that God's not over here, mental health's over here. Same thing with food.
Yeah.
God is very involved, and the Bible says so much about food, and the church was hung up on food rules, right? So I can eat the perfect diet and still be toxic because of my emotional guilt, anxiety, and disturbance.
Good point.
That's not even going to process these healthy ingredients
Right.
in the way they were made to,
Right.
right?
That's a good point.
Now I just spun out some more people. Like, oh no, I mean,
I have a super chat. You ready?
do it.
Okay. Oliver the emoji. Oh, that's cute. I have been living my Christian life in front of those who I pray privately for to be saved and to grow in Christ. I have Bible studies with etc. And it's frustrating when I don't see much, if any, change in them. Any tips?
Yeah.
Yeah. Let them be.
Keep being patient.
Yeah. Just be loving.
Be patient. There's a number of questions that came in where a lot of people are Christian superheroes.
Yeah.
They feel like they gotta tell people. I gotta tell them about Christ. I gotta tell them about Christ. I gotta tell them about Christ. I gotta help this person. They're in need. I gotta help this person. There's this very intense pressure, and it's not teaching us how to live out of love. So what you're experiencing is the real world of what it's like to process people's journeys. That it's not that easy.
Yeah.
You know, pastoring is not easy. Shepherding is not easy. Leading people, teaching people, sharing, bearing one another's burdens is it's when you start getting involved in people's lives, you start to realize how challenging it is.
Yeah.
Because you can say things over and over again, and people still go in the same direction.
And does beating someone over the head with a Bible, I'm not saying physically, but yelling at them, telling them that, who have you ever won to Christ like that by condemning them?
Right.
I don't understand it. And we've all had those times, right? My earliest memories when I got saved, I was a teenager, and I it's funny now, but I was really into Carmen, okay? For those of you, I was really into Carmen. And my Jewish best friend in high school, I brought her to the house and sat her down and made her listen to Carmen. And I was like, isn't this good? Doesn't this make you feel something?
Right.
No, she thought I was crazy.
Right.
She was like, what is this? Anyways, and you know what? I think too, and I'm not that person. I'm not that person on the airplane that's going to sit next to you and go, if we died today, do you know where you're going? No, I'd rather just kind of show you love, or maybe get to know you.
Yep.
That's just not me.
I think that we are
Bless the people that do that. But
we're trying to force grace. We're trying to force the moment. We're trying to like knock the door down versus just the greatest fruit I see is the more that I learn to just be patient with people, be patient with myself, and just be gracious and not be people's superhero. And do you know, living that way actually shows more fruit in people's lives versus me like trying to bring this. All right. It was all like stress, anxiety.
yeah. And you know what the Dream Detective just said? Listening is the new evangelism. Yes.
The Dream Detective.
I know. I love that name.
These screen names are fantastic.
And you know what that speaks to? We all want to be seen and heard.
Yeah.
That's sometimes it goes back to what is the greatest thing that God is love. When you have touched love, you have touched who he is. And if you can even give that to somebody and then they go, oh, that's a reference for them. And maybe that's a setup, part of the setup for them to then eventually come to Christ, is you along the journey just showing them love. Just looking at them, asking them a question, being interested in their life.
And then just being ready.
Being available, right.
I saw in my early pastoral work, I think this kind of prepared me for more heart work that I do today. I saw more like dynamic moments when people actually said, God, I give them to you.
Yeah.
Like more
That's true.
releasing.
We've heard more stories about that.
Than I did the like, you know, like trying to say something and trying to more of like, God, they're yours. They're yours.
Yep.
Because isn't that ultimately putting the people you care about in the right place? And then when you let it go, you respond in love There's such a difference between being led by love and being driven by compulsion. And most of the disturbance questions that come in around serving, telling people about the Lord, it's being driven by compulsive disturbance.
That's so good. Led by love and not driven by compulsion.
Yeah.
Yes.
And compulsion. Oh, if I don't tell them, they're going to go to hell.
Yeah.
If I don't, there's you, this kind of goes further, but like this disturbance-based Christian life that many people live in. Sometimes I have to tell them, if everybody applied your theological framework, we're all hopeless.
Right.
It's like they're like, oh my God, if I do this from God, if I got to say, we're just under this pressure to be Jesus versus letting him just, show up. And when you let go, for me, conversations open up at the right time and the right place.
They do.
And you look back and you go, wow, that was cool. Look at what opened up. Yeah.
Ooh, Katharina. I love your name. Carmen was my first and only concert for over 40 years. God bless Carmen.
There's a whole side of my life that was me creating theatrical presentations on Carmen music
Oh.
that y'all don't even know about. You hadn't even seen.
You don't even want to know. No.
You don't even know what I've been up to when I was working those Carmen songs. We called them human videos.
Ooh. We thought we were really cool. Yeah. We had like
She had so much confidence.
we had fine arts competitions and everything like that. I did.
I know. R.I.P. Carmen.
Carmen's The Champion was
That's the song I played for my friend. Remember Dino? He did have great hair.
Carmen or Dino?
Both. Well, Dino was a little bit more. Well, they were both theatric, but in different ways.
I sat next to Dino one time, and I was like, "Look at those rings he has on his fingers."
He was like the Liberace of Christian music.
When he would, We're getting on all kinds of tangents.
We are. Sorry, everybody.
So,
Do you want to do any more questions, babe, or do you want to wrap it up?
I'm
It's
gonna
up
wrap
to
it
you.
up. I'm wrapping it up. I'm hungry.
I know.
Yeah. Speaking of food, all this talking about food.
I know.
But I pray that I didn't know that I need to be now more prepared. Like I'm getting like through 5 questions. That's about it, and then I'm gonna share a bunch of personal stuff. And I pray it's a blessing to your life and your journey. I do want to mention, those of you that want to join the community, you can. Feel free. I am in the middle of teaching on the OCD healing journey. You can get that book as well, too. Do us a favor. Please like and subscribe. That helps us out so much. And support these broadcasts. You can do a one-time donation or become a monthly supporter. Whatever of any amount. It doesn't matter. All is appreciated. We're super grateful for it.
Yeah.
And look forward to next time.
Yes, may I just read one more super chat? We just had one that came in. I just want to acknowledge.
Yes, go ahead.
Musical Muku. My freshman year of college, my whole freshman class was trained in the process of going and doing what felt to me like trying to sell Jesus. It felt forced. I felt responsible for every person I passed by almost. Yeah, that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
that
get it.
happens.
I get it. It happens.
But thank you for your super chat.
Yeah.
Yes.
Grace moves relational, and
Yes.
relational is the best place because it keeps us focused on the grace of God, His power working in and through our lives. That's what grace is. It's His empowerment working. And the more I let go of my perfectionistic, obsessive performance, the more I actually saw good things taking place.
Yeah. Wait, Cade Kangas. We love you. Hold on. He said, thanks for the football name shout out. The kids loved it. Bless both of you and thanks again for the live.
That's awesome.
So good.
That's awesome. That's great. That's great. Well, hey, that's it. That's your new intro now.
I know, right? You need a jersey with your name on it.
That's it. That's it. All right, y'all.
All right, everybody. Thank you.
Lord willing, the creek don't rise. It's your brother from another mother
And your sister from another mister.
saying until next time.
We out.
AC Burton.